this dude out, axolotl. Look at his eyes. That's crazy.
Maybe about maybe 3-4 inches when we got him. He was really small. Hey, Tippy. What's up, sir? That one's only been up a few months.
Wow.
I've had this one. We built this one in 7-8 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I've had saltwater for 25 years. But we
got some anemones and stuff in here.
The movers, they kept it on their rolling dolly and when they strapped it down, and it fell when they were moving it. So when we went to open the door, so they broke this and broke this door off.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, I was really mad, and I didn't want to. I wanted them to give me my money back, and they wouldn't.
You can replace that. You just cut a piece.
Yeah.
And it's just plastic.
But it wasn't broken when I hired them.
Right. Yeah, the tough part would be getting the raised lettering, numbering.
Have the buttons, and I bought some more buttons.
No, but I mean the little raised numbers.
Oh yeah, you can find these online if you dig.
Right.
But I found these on eBay. I was able to get some more.
But at least you've got all the lettering and stuff on your glass and everything, and that's cool. Replays for 25 cents. Remember the days?
Yeah.
Yeah, it ain't like that anymore.
No. $1.
Oh, this one actually has the rotating lights. Yeah. Yep.
And they just need to be taken off, and I think the last time I plugged it in, they weren't rotating, but they lit up.
Right. This is a different model than what I expected, I think.
It's a E120.
But it's yeah, okay.
It's really heavy. So it has a relatively new speaker system in it.
This whole top carriage will come out. We're going to take this whole top carriage out today, and then we're going to service this amp separately on another day. But looks like we got 6V6 output. Probably, yeah. No, it's 6L6. There's 6L6. So this will put out probably about 30 watts or 25, 30 watts total, I imagine. Something like that.
But I assume the whole thing has to be rewired.
Okay, we got bass and treble here. Low, high, and medium, basically. Or low, high, and normal. But yeah, overall. These...
Yeah, those look in good shape.
I was going to say the tubes. I don't know if that's dust or if that's gone to gas.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like dust on those, so I think you're good there. That one looks good. That one looks like it's probably okay, but you never can tell until you start testing them and stuff.
Right.
On your power supply, let's see, how does the power on this one go? Comes in here.
Yeah, in there.
This box will probably have to be serviced separately too.
Okay.
I'll probably take this box out and service this when I take the amp.
Okay.
And then what do we got here?
I think that's the on-off.
Here?
Yeah, I believe so.
Volume, because that's a volume control.
Oh, is that volume? Okay.
That's for, that will need to be cleaned too. When I take the amp, don't let me forget that, because I probably need to spray that out.
Okay.
At least.
So what's going to be the thing that's going to require the most? This? Okay.
Yeah, we'll knock this out first. I've never done one of these like this.
Okay.
These actually, that's what I was going to have to replace, so I thought, but those have absolutely been replaced. Those are new. So I don't think I will have to replace them.
This one's not.
The rubber on those are actually good. So what is it not doing then?
It's, we can plug it in if you want.
Yeah. Do you mind?
No.
That's supple right there too, so I don't think that's a problem. That one looks supple. Yeah, I think somebody came in here actually and already did at least a lot of it. That wire nut, I don't like that. How they did that with the wire nuts. I'll replace that.
Maybe that's the power button.
That's on.
Probably just for that, yeah.
That's on and off for this. I'm guessing that would cover the whole thing.
It's missing some parts. It's missing a vanity plate that hides.
I see
there should be like a red plate that sets down over that, but I'll find that later.
I know what you're talking about.
It doesn't affect the function. It's like one time it picked up a record. Like literally one time.
Really?
Put it on, and then it plays, and I think it's the belt, because it's like, you heard the video.
Yeah, underneath, this should just pull up.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like this.
Yeah. Oh, it does have a belt. It is belt driven. Okay. I was expecting actually to see an edge drive like with this. And I thought that's what it was going to be, but
I do have a manual we found online.
Okay. Yeah. That will definitely help, I'm sure. Yeah, let's see what it can try to do.
It makes me nervous sometimes turning it on, but there we go.
Does all the coin operated part work?
I have no idea.
Do you have to put a coin in it to get it to play?
No, we didn't when we first got it. Can't remember if there's a power button.
Yeah, there you go.
Lights are cool.
There you go. Are there supposed to be lights up here too? Yeah, there should be a light up there. Ooh, okay, that's bad capacitors. Yeah, that's
It
bad.
hadn't done that before.
That's bad power caps in the amp. That's
Tubes are lit up.
Kind of goes without saying on power caps. They're just, you have to replace those, like these right here.
Yeah. It hasn't made this sound before.
But that's what that is.
Okay.
They're these will absolutely have to be replaced. I almost guarantee it. Well, I absolutely guarantee it because that's still the original. See, that's very dirty. Yeah.
But now none of the buttons don't ever work, so. See, the turntable is spinning underneath, but it's not catching your plate. So I can see it moving underneath. I can hear it, but it's not moving so we probably just didn't set it back on right. Because it used to spin. I don't like touching it anymore since it
no, I understand.
sparked once.
It's okay. Let's see where's this power button going, or this power cable rather. Here's the power box. We have 3 fuses up here. It's possible you might have blown a fuse, but this
Is that button on? There we go.
Okay, give me another selection. Let's see if we can maybe get it going. You can see it rotating here, so it definitely is on. And if I turn, I should be able to turn the power button switch off and make that stop.
No, it's been on ever since we plugged it in.
Oh, okay. So that's getting its power from somewhere else other than that box. How would that be? Where the heck is it coming from then?
Like I said, it's only picked up it went like this once, picked up a record and played it, and that's it.
It only did it one time,
Yep.
huh? See, I'm gonna turn this back
And right
on.
now the turntable's not even moving, so I just don't think it got set on there.
Well, it's the belt needs to be replaced. Yeah. I've got the belt off of it for the drive, but yeah, I see what I'm gonna see if it might just be a connection on one of these. I'll unplug them and plug them back. Sometimes that'll clear things up if you're lucky. I smell the dust burning off the tubes. Yeah, this motor right here, I mean, it's doing nothing.
Yeah.
And that motor should be, moving. That's what this motor will move the carriage. But see, there's
some kind of disconnect between here and the buttons up here for sure.
Yeah, this motor right here is just simply not doing anything at all. So where does it get its power from? It comes to here, and then So there's some kind of disrupt in this box,
Okay.
or in the power supply here.
Okay.
So even if I take this away and service it, you might not work immediately until I can get the power, until I can look at the power here. It just depends on what the problem was. But that amp for sure needs to be serviced, I can tell you, because it's got the original. From what I can see here, at least, it hasn't been serviced, I don't think. And well, the tubes should be okay. 9 times out of 10.
Back, or whatever those are.
These caps right here, power caps. These will undoubtedly need to be replaced, all of them.
Those easy to find? Are they expensive?
Oh no, they're not expensive. And I have them all in stock, all the typical values that you're going to find in tube amps. But yeah, something that controls the amp also. So that's the whole thing.
What's this one? What's
the whole caboodle. This one is lights.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I heard something click up here.
Yeah. I just hit the record cancel button.
Oh, okay.
And it did change the sound, didn't it? It started doing something different. Something's smoking. Yeah. What is smoking? That might tell us something. That resistor right there. We got a smoking resistor. I mean, that's a good thing, actually, because it's telling me what might be an issue. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it tells you what one of the
tell me what to look at anyway. But we're drawing more current through that for some reason than we should be. So I don't know why that would be. My guess is all of these contacts, every single one of those is going to have to be cleaned.
Oh, I'm sure.
Maybe even disassembled and cleaned. But okay, let's take this top out.
I bought this whole thing, but I just wanted the buttons.
Oh, for the buttons,
this is a whole...
Right on.
The whole thing.
Let me get a shot of that. I want to look just kind of at the way the buttons are set up on the back there. Alright, so here's what we got to undo. There's a ground cable right here on the back that runs down to there. We obviously have the phono output right there. Or input. I'm sorry, I had it right the first time.
Oh. Is it attached?
It is.
Oh, that's a lot of wires.
Okay, so starting on the front, we have number 1, and then it goes 2, 3, and I'm presuming it just keeps going 4. And that's correct. And then 5, and then 6. And then it goes back to 1. So it goes 1 through 6, and then it goes back to 1 on the next row. And on the back side, it's where it picks up with the 7. So you got on the front side 1 through 6, and then back here you got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So it's 1 through 12, and then the same thing is repeated on this side. So you're going to have 2 of every number, but you can't get them mixed up because the number 1 from this side couldn't possibly plug into the other side. Okay, no problem.
Yeah, we found it online.
Yeah, it's got the manual. Awesome. Okay, so we got this light back here going. It's you can see it's on a little motor over on the side here, and around the light there's a tube that runs to both ends, and it's just on these little guides. And then you got this little eccentric arm here. It just moves everything back and forth to cycle through the colors. It's pretty cool. But we're getting no juice to this little guy. This is the select button light. We figured it out. But I'll have to trace that wiring. Probably when I come back, I'll trace that wiring and bring my multimeter and try to figure out where that's going. Because it goes into that bundle, so it's hard to say. It's possible that most of these select buttons will need to kind of be cleaned too. I'll bring a can of spray when I come back, and we'll spray all these contacts on those. Sure. So, but yeah, that's about all we can do for the moment. We'll get that carriage done, and then we'll come back and look at the amp.
Sounds like a plan.
So we got this mechanism for this AMI jukebox at home now, and up on the bench you see it pretty much takes up the entire bench here. I had thought at first that this thing was stuck because we could not get it to budge at all when we were trying to use it over at the owner's house. But it turns out it actually did get it to move by turning the stator on this motor here. And you're not going to be able to see it probably, but you know, as I turn this motor, the mechanism is actually moving just very slowly. I don't know if we had a bad connection or what. We were getting a overheating resistor here on this part of the mechanism, and now that I'm looking at this, we have a wire that's loose. There's some wires coming through on this back side. There's a couple white ones, but there's also a black one. That black wire is just going nowhere. So I don't know if that's the reason that our resistor was starting to smoke. And there's no telling where the hell that's supposed to go. I'm gonna have to probably go through the manual. They sent along the manual with this thing. This is not, you know, this is not anything like troubleshooting a typical turntable. This is, you know, because there are so many records that this mechanism has to go and choose from. We have all these different switches. I mean, I can just count the switches. 1, 2, 3. Looks like 4, 5. Down here's 6, 7. There's like 7 switches just in this area. And then there's another switch here. That all the contacts need to be cleaned on, obviously. Motors wise, we have a motor over here that I don't know if it's working or not. You know, again, I can turn the stator, and it is so it's at least free, but whether or not it's working, I just couldn't say right now. We still have to test that. Over on this side, we've got another motor here, and the motor's free, it seems. But if I go far enough in the other direction, if I turn it the other way, it kind of seizes up, and I think it's obviously because of the mechanism back here. You can see that it's turning this very, very slowly back here. The arm just started moving there. You can see it moving, hopefully. Alright, so the more I'm turning that over, that is moving the arm. But at some stage, this should come up and grab a record. I don't know when that's going to happen, or if it's going to happen with this motor. It should. Yeah, there it goes. There we go. Okay. She's trying to come up. I'll tell you what I want to do now is, now that I've got this loosened up and I've got this motor loosened up, I want to plug it in and just see really quickly if I can get it to move without smoking this resistor again. We're going to do it with the Variac. Let's see, we'll turn it on there. Try a low power level first. So it hurts, something's moving here. Okay, when I turn this up, I think that spindle right there is moving. It is. Okay. So that's beginning to work. But why isn't this motor over here working? And I'm assuming it's on a switch of its own. It probably has to be connected to the rest of the mechanism and to make a selection to get that part to operate. That's my guess. I can tell all of this lubricant that's on this mechanism has basically turned to glue. It's going to be really hard to tell on this camera, but there is some lubrication here, but it's all very glue-like, and it's very old, very sticky. Listen. Not what you want to hear out of glue, you know, out of like oil or grease. That belt right there is obviously not the correct belt for that. I'm pretty certain. Can't be right. Because look how much it's flopping there. Okay, that resistor's not hot at the moment. So the question sort of remains, how do I fully test this if I don't have the other part? First I'm gonna crank this up all the way and just see what happens. We'll go to 110. 17.5 watts just to run that motor right there, without anything else going. That's at 110 volts. Kind of at a loss for what's going to turn this one on. Oh, by the way, there's a counter down there. It tells you how many plays in total. This thing is done. 35,870 total plays right there. Right down inside of there. And then each one of these selections also has its own counter. So you'll be able to, like as a bar owner or store owner, you'll be able to come in here and see what each record is selling, you know, in terms of plays. Now I could probably go ahead and lubricate all of this according to the service manual, I'm sure. Okay, so we have the manual out. We're going to go through the part of this manual that deals with just this carriage mechanism. This says R484 and R520 mechanism. This says Model 800 on it. Not exactly what this it calls for, but it's very similar. I've already looked through it. So, like I said, this one looks like it's Model 800. You see there? Model 800. But like I said, this is very thorough, this manual that they have here. It says it's revised March 1st, 1954. Another part of the manual says it was revised in 1953. This part of the manual was revised December 1st, 1953. Selections are transmitted to the mechanism through the operation of the credit unit as described in the section entitled Function Characteristics of the AMI phonograph. When a selector switch button is pressed, the credit unit will energize the related selector magnet coil of the selector assembly, drawing one end of the corresponding selector finger against the magnet. The finger is held in its position against the magnet core by the action of a flat spring. As a finger is tripped, the opposite end will rise, lifting the bail wire which pivots at both ends of the selector frame. See figure 13. Okay, so what it's talking about here are these guys, these little fingers down here. Each one of these has the ability to sort of pivot on this little central pivot. So you can see these three on the end here are tripped right now, and they're kind of tripped by accident, so I'm going to push them back down. So you see they kind of pivot right here, and as they pivot, they lift this little center bail wire, I think is what they call this right here, this wire, and there's one on for each side. You see how that lifted that up right there? Okay, so this shows you in a sort of cross-sectional detail. We have this little spring on the end, this little guy right here, and you can see those springs if you look down here. That's what these guys are here on the end, these springs. And what they do is they hold the finger up until this electromagnet down here is magnetized, and when that happens, it drags this finger down toward the magnet. See there? Drags it down toward this magnet when that's magnetized. There are magnets for each one of these fingers that are connected to by wires and the harness. And if you look in the last video I made at the owner's house, I showed the wiring harness. They're all plugged in down here on the bottom, and they snake their way up to the buttons, the selector buttons. So when you select a song, it's actually each one of the selections is corresponding to one of these fingers, either on this side or on this side. And when a selection is made, basically an electromagnet is tripped, it pushes this little finger down and tells this mechanism right here, this carriage, where to stop. So if you look here, there's switches on this side right here, and there's another one on this side right here. Where is it? Yeah, it's this guy and this guy. And these are connected up higher to a switch, and you'll see the switch right here kind of move. As I trip this, you can see that the switch right here moves. As the bale wire swings upward, it closes the blade contacts of one of the starting switches. This is the starting switch right here that starts the whole shebang. See there? When a selection's made. The connection actually is open right there and it's closed right there. When this closes, it starts basically a chain reaction and the whole thing begins working after that. For this motor to start working, or this motor to start working, I'm not sure, there's a relay inside of the amplifier. So, and it will only begin when the amplifier is warmed up. So when a selection's made and one of these little fingers is tripped, this switch right here is closed. It tells the amplifier to turn on. After the amplifier is warmed up, then another relay closes, which in turn, I believe, tells this motor to start and move to the selection and then begin grabbing and playing the record. Both starting switches are connected in parallel and are connected across the phono junction box relay by means of a 4-wire cable between the junction box and the mechanism. So I think actually I do have to have the junction box connected to fully test this thing. This connector right here and the wire that connects to that goes down to the junction box, which is still on the back of the machine at the owner's house. The junction box is basically the power box for the unit. That's this thing, the junction box. And what it's got inside of it, it has a transformer and it has a rectifier, and this is a selenium rectifier, so we're probably going to have to replace that, I would imagine. I mean, because this thing is from the 1950s and it's selenium rectifier, that's probably not outputting the correct voltage at this point, so that most likely has to be changed to get voltages that are workable in this thing. And I might have to do something to make the voltages correct too. But anyway, this is the junction box, and it's, like I said, it's still on the back of the owner's machine at their house. So I don't know if I could fully test this thing without it. And I'm sure I can't actually, without it and the amplifier. What I can do here is going to be cleaning and lubrication and all that kind of stuff. But I do want to understand how it all works and is put together, because when I get it back together, I'm going to probably have to do some troubleshooting in situ when I get everything back together. So when either starting switch closes, the voltage applied to the relay will then be shorted out and the relay falls out. The contacts of this relay are so arranged that the amplifier is turned on when the relay falls out. The turntable motor will be turned on by the amplifier after it has warmed sufficiently for normal operation. So this turntable motor will not turn on until the amplifier is warmed up. So this plug right here actually plugs into the junction box. So no voltage will be getting to this plug normally. If I flip this, so that comes on. When the amplifier warms up, it's tripping a relay inside the junction box that in turn gives voltage to this. I'm going to go through this again and just do some more kind of looking around on it and figure out some more about it, but we've got a good start here. The action of the above relay can also be employed to change the decorative lighting scheme, and the relays they're talking about right there is the relay inside the junction box. So you can make that change the lighting scheme if you wanted to do different lighting, I guess, for different songs. I'm not sure. When the relay coil is shorted out, the full voltage is applied to the carriage gear motor. So this doesn't get voltage until the junction box relay shorts out and then gives this power. And it looks like the power for this one is going to this junction here. So we could test this motor by pulling this and running some wires. There's a lot to this, and it really doesn't help that I'm fairly certain this belt is wrong and this other belt is gonna need to be replaced, because look at it, it's got dents in it from where it sat so long. I'm thinking both these belts 100% are gonna need to be replaced. The wire for this motor is going underneath here and coming out right there, so that's where that one plugs in, and it's obviously turned on and off with a couple of these contacts up here. Let's start with a low voltage. There it goes. Okay, that's about 11.2 volts. But you can at least see that the mechanism is working there. And now I think when this gets to the end of the record, it will trip a switch. Yeah, see the switch, it trips back there. And I don't know if that reverses. I don't know what's going to do after that, but let's see. I don't know, but we have confirmed at least that that motor works. And I guess we could reverse those leads. Move it the other way. We've reversed the leads there. We'll dial it on up. There we go. Now the motor's running backwards. Okay, it kind of stopped right there. So, is that as far as it goes and then it has to run backwards again? I'm not really 100% sure. Or maybe it simply stopped because it doesn't have enough amperage to complete the task. Yeah, I don't know, but that's at the end of that cycle. So if I were to reverse these leads again, it would go back the other way. Fire this up to about 12 volts. And it'll stop once it gets down. This arm right here comes over, and then everything sort of goes to a stop again. Okay, so we'll go ahead and dial that down and cut the voltage off. Alright, now we've got the DC power supply back here hooked up to this motor, which should move the entire carriage back and forth. Let's get a look at that and see if it works. Does not seem to be. It does not seem to be working. Hang on. Have I got it plugged in properly? It is hooked up. There's nothing. There's no amp draw. Let me see if I can go directly to the contacts, because it's the only other thing I know to do. I guess we could reverse. Maybe it's only meant to go one direction. I don't know. There's no current draw at all there. Okay, something's going on. I think there's something wrong with the commutator here. Something ain't right. There it goes. The brushes. Look, listen. Okay, we got 12.6 volts. Watch. Something's wrong with the brushes. They're not getting good contact. They sort of are now, but not really. Now, is this thing going to go all the way around? Surely it must, right? Yeah, man, this thing is just... Let me help it along a little bit. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a hand. And then it just goes the other way without having to reverse. Okay. So it is actually working, but the brush is, that brush on this side is severely worn. This brush over here. So that's the reason that was not starting. But it is going now. And it gets to the other end and should go back the other way. Whoop, 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 whoop. Stop, stop, stop. Okay, it got caught. What did it get caught on? Or was that just another case of the... No, it did get caught on something. Oh, it got caught because the end finger is up. That end finger right there is up. Okay. Alright, that's what stopped it. Let's dial it back up and continue. Okay. Yeah, see, you can see this little finger down here as it... Well, not this finger, but this switch, as it goes past all these fingers, I don't think that should be catching on any of them. If they're all the way down, I think it's supposed to be missing them, but it keeps catching on them. I think that finger right there, that little switch thing, is too low. It's sitting down too far. Maybe it's bent. And we still haven't figured out what's up with this loose wire that's inside of there. There's a loose wire, and I don't know if it's a ground wire. It looks like it's coming from, possibly, yeah, it's coming from one of these switches right here. So it's the main, it's basically one of the main switches that's going to turn all this on when it's ready to play a record. Obviously something's not right with that. But see how it starts clicking? It's almost like these are all set up too high or something. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure what voltage these are supposed to run at, because it's running rather slow right now. But see that? See how it's catching? I don't think it's supposed to do that. Basically, we're going to have to lube the chain. We're going to have to lube the sprocket, whatever's inside of here. This is like a gear reducer inside of here, a transmission gear reducer kind of thing in there. We have to lube that, probably. Lube the motor bearing over here on this side for sure. Lube this motor bearing over on this side for sure. Lube this bearing right here on that idler. Ooh, what was that? What was that? That sounded like a fart. But it sounded like some liquid shot out from somewhere or something. Okay, see this? That's not supposed to do that. I'm pretty certain, because every time it is doing that, it's tripping that switch, and I don't think that's supposed to happen. So maybe these need to be screwed down further. All right, we'll kill the DC voltage to that motor. So this motor is successfully tested. That motor's good. This motor is good. These brushes on this motor are not in great shape. These brushes on this motor I can see on both sides. I can see the brushes on this one. So these look like they're okay. This one might need to be replaced over on this side on this motor, because it's not getting very good contact. Okay, so we kind of know where we need to go with this. We've got... oh, by the way, we have another one of those switches down here on this end. So when one of these gets tripped and it pops up over here, you've got one down this end that gets tripped as well. I think all of these are too high, or either that or this little arm right here is down too low. Because every time it comes back, it's hitting that, and it's actually tripping. I think it's tripping this switch to get past it. So let me see if I can tighten those down, because it's the central ones I think that are doing it. I think it's these through here that are causing the problem. But no, those are tightened all the way down. Those are tightened down. I don't think it's that. We'll investigate that a little bit more. But right now, what we do know is that the motors work. That motor works. This motor works for the spindle for the turntable, and this motor works right here that does the changer mechanism. So these motors work, but they desperately need lube, and every piece of it has to be lubed. So let me go further in the manual and see what kind of lubing they suggest. And also, once again, we've got, and you can actually see it a little better now, that wire right there, that black wire down in there. That wire is just completely loose. It's going nowhere. That wire right there is also cut. So we've got a green wire that's missing and cut, and we've got another one here that's cut. So why? Why do we have cut wires? Okay, this could get involved. Okay, so a couple of things I figured out here. The wires down here that are loose, there is a green one and a black one, once again, that are coming through this little grommet right here. The black wire is running up here to this point on this multi-pin connector, the same connector that is supplying DC voltage over to this motor. So we're getting some DC voltage, that much we know. Also, there's a green wire that's coming over here to this junction between these two switches right here on the carriage. If we look at the manual here, page 18 and 19 is a mechanism wiring diagram. Right here are the carriage switches, and here this junction right here, this wire that's coming off of this is coming over here to the counter solenoid. And sure enough, if we look down here, you're not going to be able to see it probably, but there is a pair of wires down there coming out of that solenoid. There's the solenoid. The solenoid's right here inside of this, and coming off of that, sure enough, are some green, a pair of green and black wires that just sort of end. They go underneath that counter and then they don't come out, and that's what they are. So those are the solenoid wires for the counter. I don't know if the counter was screwed up, but at some point they didn't want it, possibly they didn't want it to continue to count for some reason. But if you look here, you know, if you press down on this piece right here, this simulates what would happen if the solenoid actuated, and that actually will cause the counter to count up another number. I don't know if you can see that there. It also comes over here and counts here. You can see that selection count also going up when that's actuated. So play number 20, for instance, that's what we're on right now, number 20. you know, that counter would be going up and up and up, and so would the overall counter. But somebody at some point in this thing's life unhooked that. Who knows why they would have done it, but they did. So we're gonna probably rewire that after we figure out whether or not the solenoid is good. We will hook it up to some voltage. Those two wires, we'll dig those out and hook it up to some voltage and check the solenoid, or at least check the continuity of it before we hook it back up. Also, earlier when we were moving this carriage back and forth, this little armature that dips down, that registers a selection and trips the switch, that was too low. Well, there are 4 screws that adjust that. The 4 screws are here, 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 and here. If you loosen those, this whole piece, this whole plate will slide up and down slightly, and will allow you to clear those. You can actually set those to the proper clearance. There is a clearance spec. They're referring to this little arm that comes down as a pawl. So this pawl, it kind of comes down, and whenever one of these selector fingers is tripped, so that a selection has been made and it wants the carriage to stop at this point, this pawl should catch. Otherwise, it should not hit any of these that are down. And it gives you a specification for this right here. So we need to set that between 0.021 to 0.083 inches. So 83 thousandths or 21 thousandths of an inch should be the interference there. And it gives you, what does this say? 1/64th of an inch minimum clearance obtained by bending the carriage switch stop. Okay, so it's saying to bend this switch stop back here. It's saying you can bend that, and it's back in there, and indeed you can bend it, but you can also set the height by moving those, removing those 4 screws, loosening them, and you can move this whole thing up and down slightly. And it looks to me like these solenoids over here. So here's the solenoid here. And here's another solenoid here, and these are reset solenoids. So what'll happen is if you have a selection that's up, one of these fingers is in the up position, this solenoid right here, when it's tripped, will come down and push that selection back down after it's completed. Same here. Actually you'll be able to see a little better here, possibly. So like if that selection right there is up, this solenoid will come and reset it. I'll have to look at the schematic here in a minute and see a little further what that resistor right there is, because that resistor is what was smoking before. So something was stuck and too much current was getting pulled, and that resistor right there was trying to smoke. Also, I'm just now seeing this. I don't know what that would be doing right there, but it doesn't need to get caught in the mechanism, so we'll remove that. But we've got to get in here and do a lot of lubrication. Now, some of the lubrication points I have found are here. There's a felt on this this carriage rod. So there's an oil point right there. There's also a felt inside of here, this idler wheel. There's a felt here on the, well, there's no felt, but you're supposed to also lubricate the motor there, and also lubricate down in this shaft. And you're supposed to use sewing machine oil for those points. There's also some felt points. There's one right there. You see that little hole right there? And that will lubricate this point of the carriage. And then there's another one over here on this side that'll lubricate right there, this point of the carriage. Now, as for how to lubricate all of this stuff exactly, I think you're just supposed to topically lubricate these sprockets and all these cams and everything up here. I think you're supposed to just topically lubricate this. There's a shaft here that moves back and forth, this one. It's supposed to move slightly in and out so that the record kind of gets grabbed by this piece. It kind of slightly moves this way, back and forth. and that needs to be lubricated. And it looks like there might be a lube point right there. Best I can see, there's a little something there I can sort of see peeking out. As for the rest of this, we'll just have to kind of just do it as it comes up, and do it as we go. Now these sprockets here, I think we're supposed to just topically lubricate these as well. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out all the lubrication points, but once we get all these down, we'll lubricate this thing up. But at least I did find where those wires went, and it's not critical. If I didn't want to hook that up, it doesn't seem like I have to. As for the belts, one of these belts might actually work for the turntable, but the other one that's going around the idler spindle and around the motor spindle is not the right size, so we're gonna have to get a smaller size to fit that. Yeah, I think that's about it for the moment, but yeah, I'm just learning more and more about this as the more I look at it and the more I read about it. Okay, so I've lubricated everything on this, and the parts that I did not get with Zoom Spout, which is like a sewing machine oil, I did with this Super Lube multi-synthetic silicone grease. The manual actually called for a silicone grease, but it called for a pretty expensive type that is very similar to this. So instead of ordering the really expensive stuff, which is like, it's over $100 a tube, but this will do the same job, and it seems to be working really great now. It's not struggling, it's not slowing down, it's not really doing any of that stuff. It's just coming straight up and doing what it's supposed to do. And another thing too, if you were wondering how to change the direction of the record, so how to change which side of the record plays, there's actually like a switch back here. I'm not sure exactly how this switch gets thrown or what has to occur to make it happen, but you look right here, there's a little slug that will come out when I flip this thing. You can like teeter this back and forth, and this actually will change which side of the record gets picked up. I don't know if this is going to work because we're not exactly centered on the record right now. I don't know if it's going to pick it up or not. Nope. Didn't like that, but you'll see that the arm went the other direction this time. So it was going to play the other side of the record. So that explains how that's done. Let me see if I can center this a little closer to being correct. Let's try that right there, maybe. And now we're going to pick it up and we're going to flip the record over. So I'm going to reach back here, I'm going to flip that switch, and we'll flip it where the arm comes onto this side now. Beautiful. Smooth as silk. That's working really, really nicely. So the motor, the mechanism, the arm, the output on the stylus, and the cartridge, all of that seems to be great. The two wires that were loose down here. So once again, we had two wires that are loose. But I think the thing is, if I hook the counter up and someone is not coming in here and resetting the counter, it only goes up to like 50 plays per record. And if someone's not reaching in here every now and then on this end and resetting the counter, so you can actually turn this so that all of these numbers will move. See, this whole thing is moving, and that resets the counter back to zeros across the board, but it only goes up to 50. So when it gets to 50, it's just not going to register anything after that. So I don't know if it's really worth it to even mess with. It's probably best just to leave it off. I don't know how much it's needed when this thing is not in like a cafe or a bar and you're not counting plays. But once again, as for the record changer, this thing is really, really working nicely. Okay, so I think I finally got this thing licked. I have my bench power supply set up to about 24 volts. Now, I don't know if that's the appropriate voltage or not that comes out of the junction box, but I'm assuming it has to be pretty close to being correct, because otherwise the motors in this will run much too slowly. So I'm thinking it almost has to be around 21 to 24 volts, something like that probably. So you can see there I've got a series of gator clips clipped onto that socket right there. I figured out by looking at the schematic for this junction box that the positive comes into this pin here, and I determined that by looking at, like I said, look at the schematic and seeing where else, for instance, over here on this first plug, there was a wire that was supposed to run to the positive over to this plug somewhere, so I traced it backwards essentially from one of the relays and found out where the positive voltage was supposed to come in. The rest of these are supposed to be negative voltages, so those are all hooked in, together, negative, and the positive, the red there, is positive. And what I've done here is I've gone down through and made a series of selections. I've just tripped some of these pins, so you know there's basically several song selections essentially have been tripped here along the way. So we're going to simulate what it's going to be like to have this thing running. So let's check it out. So right now there's no voltage, so let me turn on the power supply. And I don't know if you could see there, but the power supply is now on, and we've got about 23.3 volts. We have the junction box switched to on. This thing is ready to go. All I've got right now, it thinks that a record is playing. You'll notice that it's 23 volts, but there's no current being drawn, and that was confusing me kind of at first. But what you have to do is you have to pick this up and simulate the record playing to the end, and when it trips, it plays to the end, it's going to put that imaginary record back up, and now it's going to hunt, or it should hunt, for the next record. But what have I done? Something's not right. Hang on. Okay, I presumed it was going to continue hunting, but it probably stopped hunting because there were no more selections down in this direction. So let me see. Let me think about what I need to do now. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so it does have a selection down there. I don't know why it was not. I don't know why it didn't try to hunt them automatically. Something was not. It seemed to be something in the tone arm. Okay, now it's hunting automatically. And we're drawing about close to a half an amp when the motor's running. And now we're going to play another record. Okay, there's the record that played. Now let's put that record up. It's going to hunt for the next one. We've got a couple selections to go over here. Okay. And now this same record should play again, or one close to it. Hang on. Okay, they hit another selection there. Alright. You'll see what I'm doing here. So now that imaginary record's been put back up. It's going to hunt for the next record to play. It's grabbing it automatically. It's going to play it. Okay, it's hunting for another one. Okay, so everything looks like it is running really like clockwork, with the exception of, I don't know why, every now and then it kind of hiccups and doesn't seem to want to play. It seemed to be related to the position of the tone arm, so I don't know. Maybe I'll mess with the gap on the switch, on the tone arm switch. But this thing is lubricated. All of the contacts have been cleaned at this point. The only thing I'm waiting on a new pair of belts actually, because I don't think either of them were actually right. Okay, I'm going to keep making some selections here so we can keep this kind of rolling. Because mainly I just want to just break it in. You know, it probably hasn't done this in decades. You know, who knows how long it's been since this thing has actually played a record or moved the carriage or any of this kind of stuff. So, you know, this sort of break, especially after lubing it, this sort of break-in period is going to be essential. But you see, there was another record right next to that one, so that record played, and we'll continue going. And yes, indeed, this motor has a reverse. There is a reverse solenoid that reverses this motor over here. I was speculating before whether or not this carriage motor was reversible, and it indeed is. Also had to tension the chain, and the way to tension the chain was to move this entire assembly right here, and you just undo these bolts, loosen the bolts for this whole assembly for this motor, and this motor, the whole assembly slides back and forth, tensioning the chain, because the chain was kind of loose at one point and it was kind of revving up once it got past the sprockets on either end. So I tensioned that, and that seems to be okay. I want to see it. Let's see. Actually, pick up the last record. I think the last record will play, so I'm going to move that record to that point. But yeah, it appears to be breaking in really nicely here. Oh, I missed it. Okay, why did I miss it? So clearly something is, the alignment's not correct somehow. Oh, okay. Huh. Yeah, it seems as if the alignment might be slightly off. You gonna get it? Okay, it got that one that time. Okay, so it did pick up the record. Let's simulate the putting it back and see if it can do that. Okay. I don't know why it couldn't pick up the last record when it was over here. That was something was not right with that for sure. I have to wonder if this voltage is correct. It's got to be close, because that looks like about the right speed that one of these would, you know, probably run. But it didn't. I couldn't find the voltage in the manual. It didn't give me the proper voltage, so I'm just guessing that's probably about 24 volts, and that seems to be about right. I don't know why it skipped over. Oh, see, it can't get that record for some reason, the last one. I don't know why it missed it. I kind of didn't see. No, okay, so the front seemed to be close, but the rear was wrong. So let me pick up this end again. Oh, it missed that one too. Missed that one too that time. Why did that happen? Why did that happen? Okay, well, I have to figure out the record alignment issue. It's only picking up the records part of the time that it's supposed to, so we have to figure that part out. But other than that, I mean, all the electronics on the the carriage mechanism seemed to be working fine, so we're almost there. Okay, so I finally figured out what was causing the record not to be picked up it was actually being picked up fine when the carriage was going in one direction. So anything that was selected on this side was being picked up just fine. So what I figured out is all of the little fingers on this side, they're the ones that are going to play one side of each of the records. Okay, so this is like, for instance, side A this is the side A side, and this is the side B side. Side A side only gets picked up when it's going one direction, and side B, the other side, only gets picked up when it's going the opposite direction. So what I figured out was this arm, this red arm right here, was slightly bent, so it wasn't really centered on the record. So I think I've finally gotten that sorted. Hang on, I'll show you. Okay, I'm going to stick this record here on the very end, and I have both selections on the both fingers on this record selected. So when it's going this way, it's going to grab it. It's going to grab it headed this way, and it's going to play one of the sides. So it'll come over here and play side A of the record. Now when I reject the record, it's going to put it back, and then it's going to go all the way to the end of the chain and then come back and grab it again a second time. And it's been grabbing it without fail, and see, it's playing the other side of the record now. So it's been doing this without fail for several times in a row, and I'm pretty confident I fixed the problem. So I think this carriage is now 100% ready to go, and I say that with some reservation because I still have actually one thing to do. Let me set it to grab just something there so it'll stop on its own. One thing I do think I want to do, okay, and everything shuts off just fine, and the only thing that should be left running at that point would be the turntable, but the turntable again doesn't have the belts installed. It only has one of the belts, not the drive belt. So, okay, the only thing I have really left to do was gonna be actually to check inside of this junction box. There is a capacitor, but I don't think it's an issue, but everything seems to be working just fine. I don't think it's one that needs to be changed. So, but just keep in mind there is one in here. I don't know exactly what it would do, but maybe the voltages or something seem to be off. I don't know, but there's a capacitor in there that you might want to look at. But the carriage, everything seems to be fine at the moment, so I'm not going to touch that or bother with that. The only other thing that I would kind of like to do, honestly, I would like to disassemble this motor and transmission right here and change the fluid out of this little transmission here. The motor at times seems like it's struggling just a little bit, this motor, but it's got a lot of weight. There's a lot for it to really do. I don't know how much that's going to help. Maybe I'll oil this one more time here before we seal it up and it's not running hot at all. Okay, so I'm at the point now of pretty much giving this thing a complete clean bill of health here on the carriage mechanism. I've got all of the motors and everything are running much smoother, much cleaner. I have retensioned the chain, so this motor there's less strain at certain points in the cycle on this motor over here. This motor has gotten really, really quiet. This one is not quite as quiet as I would like it to be, but I've sprayed both of these with this Max Pro. I love this stuff, this Max Pro electronics lubricant. Basically, it's a cleaner and a lubricant in one. It can be used on potentiometers, faders, on mixers, all that kind of stuff, but also it can be used on motors. Basically, you want to disconnect any and all electric connection to the motor, and you can spray the entire motor with this, and basically it'll flush out anything that's kind of getting in the way, and it will leave behind when it evaporates. When all the cleansers evaporate, it leaves behind a electronic safe lubricant. And I sprayed both of these motors with it, just sprayed off all of the contacts, the brushes, and also the motor itself of both of these, and they are much quieter. They've been running. Let me see, I'll put a couple of put some selectors here and you can see how well they're running. Also, I'll pick up this disc at the end of it, but listen to how silent. Much smoother, much quieter. All this stuff is running now. And the more it has operated and the more that lubrication on all of these parts has kind of worked its way into everything, it's really gotten quiet, really gotten smooth. Right now I'm using 26 volts. Again, I don't know what the voltage on this is supposed to be. That's the one omission that I can find in the schematics and documentation on this. I'm using 26 volts, and it's drawn about between 350 to 400 milliamps on both of these motors when they're in use. I can see, for instance, it jumps up to about 350 milliamps at 26 volts right there. We could do the calculations and get the wattage, but I'm sure that that's within the wattage spec of these motors. That's not going to be outside of something that's reasonable for these. But this seems to be about the voltage level where this thing runs relatively swiftly and smoothly. I'll have to test and see what the voltage output is to this carriage, because I just don't know. Like I said, I'll report back later. But it's picking up records perfectly now. I've got everything's dialed in. It will pick it up and play one side of the record. It's going to go and then pick up and play the other side of this record as well. Very quietly, very smoothly, and it works every single time. I haven't had any issues in probably about the last 100 plays. So I'm pretty confident that this is completely clean bill of health now. I think as long as this thing remains lubricated, as long as you keep new brushes in the motors, you know, when they eventually do wear out, this thing will probably last, God, this thing will last generations. I mean, the way that this is built, I mean, it's a machine. This is going to be here at the end of the world with the with the cockroaches and rats. Motors are working very smoothly, especially since I cleaned them both and lubricated the bearings. Again, both of these do have transmissions inside of the motors, and ideally I would like to disassemble the whole thing, but that's going to be a very involved job. Without taking those completely apart though and opening them up and replacing whatever lubricant is inside, that doesn't seem possible. So it's a matter of just time. They want to kind of keep this job within about 3 hours for the carriage, hopefully, and then another 3 or 4 hours for the electronics, so that it's affordable. With that being said, it's just not in the budget this time to open those up. And besides that, everything seems to be running very smoothly without having to do that. But like I said, it's like clockwork. It really is. I mean, this is the textbook definition of clockwork. Yeah, I can see from the current draw that this motor over here is definitely having to work harder than this one. So that's one side of the record again. Let's play the other side. Yep, like I said, it's been working pretty much without fault for quite a while now, so I'm super confident that this is going to be just fine. See, the problem with this is if you don't load this thing up entirely with records and records that don't skip, If you get a record that skips and just will not go past a skip, you'll just be stuck in the skip. You'll have to open up the machine and get past the skip and replace that record so it never gets played again and hits that skip, because this arm has to get to the end of the record to keep going. So yeah, man, I have learned quite a lot about this particular model and about jukeboxes in general. By the end of this, I probably will be an expert on this model. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for now. As you could tell, this is a pretty long, drawn-out process, but the carriage now is done. And the next part in this series, we will get the amplifier and all the other electronic stuff and bring those back here and get those up on the bench and check all that stuff out, including the coin operation, and see if we can do anything for that. But thanks for sticking around. Like I said, I know it's a long video, but that just goes to show how much of a labor of love owning these things really is. If I were to charge these guys what I actually spent, to learn this, it would be probably in the thousands. But I understand, as somebody who is willing to learn, I understand there is a learning curve on all this stuff, and I'm willing to eat a lot of that time myself just to learn a new thing and also to get a cool video for all you guys. So if you enjoy this, if you want to see part 2, make sure you hit subscribe down below. And for now, we will see y'all later.